Hi English 9, this is Ms. Long, and I want to start this weekly video with a little bit of a comic. Hey man, are you going to watch the Super Bowl? Yeah, I'm going to watch it on my new 80-inch television. And then, here he is, on 80-inch television, watching a Super Bowl. Ha, 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 love that pun. And here's another comic for you. In divorce court, a man and a woman, and the judge is asking, "What? You hid the remote during the Super Bowl?" Of all things, imagine that. Now, why would I begin with two comics about the Super Bowl? This unit or this session starts off like just a normal week, but it ends and everything is due on the same day that you may very well want to be watching our very own Denver Broncos hopefully do a respectable job of defending and protecting their own reputation against the Panthers. So knowing that that's there, I would encourage you as you get this video and as you start looking through the week to plan to get everything done before Sunday, because you're not going to be wanting to sit on the edge of your seat watching some great play thinking, I've got to get my project done. So plan ahead. It's important for me too, because I usually do a lot of work on Sunday as well. So just a reminder, this is the session though that ends up our unit on night, and next week we'll be moving into the definition essay. But I want to just point out what is really important for this session. You've got a work ethic bonus. If you've been doing this all along and you're in the final leg for this for the 3% bonus points, go ahead and get that work ethic bonus in. Got a weekly journal. You've been doing a fabulous job on your weekly journals. I've been very impressed with some of the writing I've been seeing and the thought. It's really very, very cool. And also the night project and presentation, which we'll get to in a second, and an exit slip to wrap up our unit. So that's where we're going. But before I go any further, I want to clarify something from last week. And that thing that I need to clarify is about last week's quiz. I cannot tell you how impressed I am with about the 10 of you that messaged me about a question or a couple questions that had wrong answers associated with them. I always give extra credit when students find points that I have missed, and I've proofread well enough, and I really know that you're on the ball because I got probably 10 messages about this. And I'm a little bit sheepish in admitting this. I took this from the resources I had and did not really look it through very carefully before I put it out there. So kudos to you. Reminder to me. If you are one of those people who said, wait a minute, the question number 3, question number 7, they don't seem quite right, I better contact Ms. Long. Know that if you didn't already hear back from me, that I am aware of it and you'll see the correction as you see your scores. So just take heart. You guys are doing a great job of proofreading. So again, on to this week's session with those 4 assignments I mentioned. We've got the work ethic bonus for those of you who have been doing it. Keep doing that planner for the week so that you can get the points that you need for extra credit to kind of boost things and also to learn the skills of organization that you need. Second assignment is your journal assignment. And as I said, you've been doing a fabulous job of continuing with your Google Docs, just adding an entry each week. This prompt is to kind of reflect on the Holocaust itself. As I've taught the Holocaust, as I've worked with students on this book and Holocaust-related materials for many years now, I always get the question, how did this happen? How is it that such evil things were done by humans? Because from our vantage point, we can see how wrong this was. And so I want you to take a few minutes to think about what you've read and to use some of the resources here to think, how did this happen? Now, if you're completely stymied by this, completely stuck, think about things like euphemism. A euphemism is like saying, I'd like to go to the powder room when we really mean the bathroom to go do our business. And that's another euphemism. So when we use language to represent something a little differently than the reality. So, for example, the Nazis used words like resettlement. We're going to resettle the Jews. Well, resettlement's not what we would think of as, oh, we're just going to go get a new house. But they said resettlement, and it sounded a little bit more pleasant and shielded people from reality. So think about that. There's a resource here you can click on and look at some of those euphemisms. German secrecy and denial. There are some Holocaust deniers still alive in the world today, but the Germans were the ones who really put all of that in motion. They worked very hard at making sure the world did not know about this. In fact, it was one of the factors in the decision that Eliezer and his father made in evacuating to Buchenwald. They knew that the Germans would not want this information out in the world. So that's part of how it happened, the secrecy there. Degrees of responsibility, and this is a link from the Holocaust Memorial Museum. It's not just Hitler who was responsible for the Holocaust. Germans from a lot of different places and responsibilities were involved in this. So you can ask yourself, what were the things people were responsible for? If you worked in a factory making munitions for the wars, were you responsible? If you were one of the youths who went and joined Hitler's youth, were you responsible? So something to think about there. And the Full Color Reality is a video you might want to watch. This is Hitler in color. These are Hitler's gatherings and speeches in color. And it may change your perception a little bit because most of what we see is in black and white. So check that out. And then we look back at the silence of the world, and there's a quote from Elie Wiesel here. We hear that the rest of the world, also composed of cultured people, remain silent in the face of genocide. Think about all of these. Refer to some of these sources as you write in your journal. How did this happen? How did this come to be that humans were so barbaric to other human beings? Give that some thought. And then you can move on to your primary task this week, which is to pull things together with a project and presentation. This is your final summative assessment that tells me what you got out of your reading. And you have a number of different options. You can do some research on some of the heroes from the Holocaust that are overlooked. I know of at least one of you who watched the movie Schindler's List, about a real person who saved a number of Jews, hundreds of Jews, I think 1,000 Jews, by his connections in business. A lot of other people. So research those findings, present them in a Prezi or some other creative presentation. Another option, compose a poem and add some music to it. Present that all together in a Prezi or some other similar type of medium. Conduct an interview and create with Elie Wiesel's father, who is named once in the book, Shlomo. Ask some questions, give his answers to those, and create a multimedia presentation about that. You can also do an obituary using some resources on how to write them for 3 of the characters that have perished in the Holocaust, and submit that with an audio or video. A time scale, a timeline or flowchart that shows the novel and explain why these are important, and use some kind of creative means to present that. Create an original soundtrack. That's some scene from each of the sections. Create a soundtrack, your own music, or music that's clipped together from other things to give this whole piece more of an artistic and emotional feel, and explain why and how you've done that. So you give a lot of options. If you've got another idea, bounce it off me. It might be something that's never been thought of before, and it might be something that would really be worth your time. So check that out. Be sure to look at the rubric here as to what we're looking for. You'll post that on a presentation discussion board. And so you'll come down here and add your presentation, a link to it or whatever. And then you are supposed to post responses, constructive criticism and positive praise for people that have posted their work. So it's part discussion, part presentation. This is your chance to see what other students are thinking about. The last thing you do in this session is an exit slip. And this is your chance to reflect on our unit and really what did you learn during this unit. And it may have been something about the Holocaust. It may have been something about writing. It may have been something about yourself and organization. You can write down one thing you learned, one question you still have, and how what you learned in this unit could be applied in the quote-unquote real world that's lingering in a few years after you graduate. And that will wrap up our unit. Be in touch with any questions. Do root for the Broncos in the Super Bowl. Have a great week, and let's see if we get some interesting snowstorms this week. Have a great week.